IELTS Speaking Strategies and Tips, Part 3. Now we are going to talk about our Part 3, which is going to be about conversation on abstract topics. Remember, the examiner might ask you a few questions on a topic from Part 2. If there is time left, then she or he will make a transition to Part 3. The purpose of Part 3 is to get your opinion on abstract topics related to the Part 2. So for example, you'll have some personal questions in Part 2, such as describing your favorite holiday. Then the examiner might have a transition by saying the following sentences. You've just talked about holidays. Now I'd like to discuss this topic more generally. First, let's talk about the importance of observing holidays. So that's how he or she will make a transition to your Part 3. In Part 3, you'll have abstract questions. They might sound like this one. Do you think that is important to observe holidays? So remember, more you speak, less questions you get, so try to speak as much as possible and answer in complete 2-3 sentences. So try not to say yes or no. Remember, more you say yes or no, more questions you are going to receive. And if you feel confident to speak about certain topics, you can show your opinion, you can present your examples and maybe some experiences or reasons you have. So your abstract questions are going to be more specific and they are going to be related to your Part 2. And now we are going to discuss about clarification. Sometimes you might hear some questions during your speaking test, but you might not be able to understand them. So that's a good idea to clarify the questions that the examiner asks. Remember, you should always directly answer a question. However, if you are not sure you understand the question, ask for clarification. Don't give an answer that is not relevant to the question. Sometimes students, even though they do not understand the question, they still speak about something different. So make sure you don't make the same mistake and you ask for clarification. Asking for clarification also gives you extra time to think of a good answer. So this is a very helpful tool to brainstorm and think about a better response. When you're asking for clarification, you can use the following phrases you have in the box. So these are common phrases to ask for clarification, such as, do you mean? Do you want me to say? If I understand you correctly, you want to know and continue your idea. You are asking me if and you would like me to give you. So these are the type of phrases you can use for clarification. And remember, you do not need to remember them all. You just have to remember a couple of them, like 2 or 3, if you'd like to, and try to practice asking questions for clarifications. This will help you a lot during your IELTS speaking test. And now we're going to review our important speaking tips that can help you during your speaking test. The first one and the most important one is keep talking, because the examiner needs to hear you use English, so please do not be shy and show your ability of speaking English for a longer period of time. Avoid giving yes, no type of answers. Speak as much as possible in 2-3 sentences. Give 2-3 sentence type of response. And it's also important to keep in mind that everyone makes mistakes, and even native speakers make some grammatical mistakes. If you make some of them, it's totally fine. Just try not to dwell on that and worry about it too much, and just let it go and continue speaking as much as you can. Another important point to keep in mind is that you should not memorize responses. You need to sound spontaneous, natural, even though you make some little errors. So it's totally fine, but try not to memorize some responses that you find online or some specific phrases. It can confuse you even more in time of speaking. Also, don't worry about a particular part. For example, you remember we have Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Remember that your score is a composite of all 3 parts, not just one. So even though you don't, for example, you didn't do well on the Part 1, always try to do better in the next part, okay? And also keep in mind about your preparation time. In Part 2, you'll be given 1 minute. So make sure you read your card, you prepare yourself, and you think about what to say during that time. So this is very important. Sometimes students come to the test, they are given 1 minute, and they look at the questions they have just for maybe 5 seconds and they say, I'm ready. But you should actually take advantage of the time you have, prepare very well, and then speak for 2 minutes nonstop. And again, don't worry if the examiner stops you, because each part has a time limit. So if examiner stops you, it doesn't mean that you did something wrong or something went not well. It's totally fine. Just move on to the next part. And again, be enthusiastic, show your positivity, and I'm sure if you show your interest and you speak a lot, you are going to do very well on this part of the test. And now we are going to review our final slide, which is going to be a recap to the things we studied today. As you remember, you'll have 3 parts to complete your speaking section, and you'll be given 11 to 14 minutes. Remember, more you speak, longer your test is going to take. Less you speak, shorter the test is going to be. In your part 1, you'll have 4 to 5 minutes to speak, and your preparation time is going to be none, so it means you won't have any time to prepare. It's going to be an interview type of task. And task 2 is going to be 3 minutes, so you'll have 1 minute to prepare and 2 minutes to speak. Part 3 is going to be 4 to 5 minutes, and you'll have no preparation time. Most of the time it's a follow-up questions about your part 2. So that's what we have for our IELTS speaking. And you just have to keep in mind to be spontaneous and sound natural.